Well, well, well. It's another episode of James and Jess's Half Hour, mate.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Can you believe it? Hi, this is James. We're recording on YouTube, so you can just...
This is Jess, and we're going to be talking about our fabulous topic.
What fabulous topic is this?
Yes.
Which is... I'm glad you asked, James. Do you know what it is?
No.
No, I'm sure you do. So, do people have an obligation to help others, or should people be responsible for helping themselves? Ooh, burn.
The individual versus the group, basically.
I would say so.
Do you have an obligation to yourself, or do you have an obligation to others?
Oh, I think it's quite easy. It's just you have to take care of yourself. Like, who cares about the other people?
Really?
To be honest, no, of course not. I would say, just on a personal perspective, that you just have to at the end of the day, you have, it's just you against the world, yeah?
I think you just have to die for someone else.
You just have to die for someone else, James.
Yeah.
Even if it's your soul.
Yeah.
But what about you and your likes and dislikes?
It's not about the ego.
It's not about the ego, but it has to have a tiny bit of ego, James? Like...
But we don't want a world of narcissists.
We don't
People just full of themselves, looking after themselves.
That's not what I meant,
wanting
James.
to be loners, wanting to live their own life. I just want to live my own life. I just want to be single. I don't want any responsibilities. I just want to do me. I want to have relationships when I want to have relationships. I don't want to have relationships when I don't want to have relationships.
Getting told off people. Now, in all honesty, James, I think it's a bit of both worlds. You can't, completely go overboard because people have their own path to take. But, you have to help people along the way. But as well, you have to take care of you, don't you?
Definitely. I think you've got to have your glass filling up with enough.
Oh, enough of what, James?
Enough goodness for yourself, nourishment.
Your soul.
Doing your soul contract, like what you're here for.
Very true.
Looking after yourself. And then you've got to realize that, if I just give a little to that person, and if I just give a little to that person,
I feel like when you
get it tenfold.
You do in time. Not when you expect it, but it's like,
But you don't do it to expect it. I kind of feel like you just become like that person who's like, oh yeah, have the drink. I don't care. I don't I'm not expecting
you become selfish then.
You don't expect them to give it to you back. You're just like, yeah, I've got enough. Here, have this. Here, have that.
I agree. I totally agree. It's kind of just like you really do get it back eventually, but it's not the whole thing of, not being, you don't be selfish.
You don't want to be
You do it
selfish.
because it's the right thing to do at the end of the day. As a human being, for another human being, it is the correct thing to do.
That's what I think we all strive for.
Yeah.
When's the time you've been selfish, Jess?
I'll tell you the time. I just bought this, this bubbly right here. And I barged in front of someone in the queue, and I thought she was going one way. She wasn't, and I just happened to bump into her, and she touched me, and I sanitized myself. She touched my arm, and because our minds are completely stuffed with this whole COVID thing, and because lockdown is over in Melbourne, it's the whole, I have to get used to human beings again. But yeah, it was like a misunderstanding, I would say. She didn't have a grudge against me, and at the end of the day, I'd never see her again. So
you just didn't care. You're just like, I'm going to buy my.
I've got a schedule on my. No,
I've got a podcast.
I've got a podcast, and I need to.
You just wait in the queue.
You just sit in your place, woman. No, it was fine. It was just it wasn't selfish. I think it was just something that just happened. I'm in my head most of the time, anyway.
Nice.
What about you, James? When were you utterly and completely selfish?
I felt really selfish when I just left everyone and went to Vancouver and just did things for me.
No, but then you needed to do that for you in order to find your own peace, and you explained that to your friends and family beforehand. I remember, actually, we went to, where did we go? Chapel Street, Hawthorne, something?
Probably, I can't remember.
Yeah, and I remember we had a massive conversation, and I was just like, no, James, you do you.
I
You need to
think
do
though, like
you.
the biggest thing is that sometimes you do really need to just throw yourself in the deep end in a new place, in a new environment.
I agree.
Remember, like Emily in Paris, how she just goes to
Oh,
Paris and it becomes this thing, and it's kind of her, you know, against it,
yeah, it's kind of just like
struggling,
if the
and
people
it's just
around
that.
you don't understand the path that you need in order to grow,
But
it's not a
also,
good
you're going to
environment.
somewhere foreign where the culture isn't the same culture that you've come
Hmm.
from. One of the things I will say about Canada that I really like is everyone's so friendly.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
But also, the one thing I learned is people are really friendly to your face.
Yeah. And then they do something behind your back.
Yeah.
Oh, classic move. It sounds just like high school. And then you realize, oh, it's just high school or
And
like
they're
primary school.
smiling, and you're just
Yeah.
like, this is so fake because
That's
I've.
the one thing, isn't it? Like you think it's just school and then you leave and go into the workplace. You're like, oh my gosh, it's probably going to be here until I reach a nursing home. To
I
the day
hate
I cark it.
I hate that. I prefer. I actually really respect the people who don't like you.
And they tell you. And it's just like, okay, we're not vibing at the same level. And that's okay. Like maybe in a couple of years, just not right now. It's the sneakiness and the deception. And then when they go and try and take your friends away from you and all that petty school rubbish because of their insecurities. But
But is that me just being like, looking after my own
no,
individual,
I think it's
or do you think,
confidence.
yeah?
That's the thing, isn't it? Whether being like people mistake shyness for bitchiness, I would say.
Also, if you're cold,
Yeah, cold, but the thing at resting bitch face, like that you people may go through absolute hell in life and people think, oh, this person doesn't want to talk to me and you're putting all this effort. Maybe that person is dealing with something that you don't know, you can't see. Maybe they have a
yeah,
mental illness, maybe they have bipolar, or just don't know, or they're struggling with their sexuality. It'd be a
maybe,
huge,
or maybe they're a narcissist
yeah, but at the same time,
who
you
just
have
wants to
to
throw you under
also
the bus and
you have to
do.
also listen to your own gut feeling and don't follow the crowd. Like maybe they're seeing it one way, and I feel a lot of people are like, oh, okay, if that person's seeing it this way, I'm just gonna
So,
take it on board,
yeah,
take it
sometimes
on board, and then make up your own mind at the same time.
I think sometimes though it's just like everyone wants to go to Nando's. And you want to go to McDonald's. Do you just go to McDonald's by yourself, Jess?
I do,
Or do you?
to be honest. I'm not even just joking. I literally, but I would literally eat at both. You know my appetite. But no, like people have to realize when there's too much, you go with it's kind of like going on a trip and you have an itinerary, for example, and you're just like, oh, it has to be like this, and this. But
Are we going to see the Eiffel Tower? But I don't want to see the Eiffel Tower, Jess.
then
And
that's
we're not going.
okay.
The group's not going.
But this is the thing where
We
I
don't have
have
time for that, Jess.
with relationship
car.
as well, yeah? It's the fact that if you want to do you and I'll do me, that's okay as well. But
Yeah.
then you also, it's kind of like that movie, Letters to Juliet.
Yeah.
You remember? Where they get too comfortable doing their own thing, but then the vibe wasn't right to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's just flow.
You do you.
If you don't want to eat a croissant
But-
with me, it's okay. You go
but-
eat some snails, James.
But I do feel though that there is a little bit of like, it can go either way. Like sometimes I do think that some people want to look after someone, care for someone, doing that for them, doing that for someone else makes them happy. It's like, that disorder where mothers have that thing where they think their child's sick and they keep on making them sick
Yeah.
so that they can care for them and get that.
But then that's like that thing where they're not confident within themselves. So
Yes.
it's just that.
So it's just kind of like, do we do things for others only for our own personal gain? Because when you think about why we do charity work, it's that feel-good feeling that we get.
Not really.
You don't think so? You don't think that the people doing charity work are thinking about the fact that they feel better as a human being by doing that?
No, not for me. I can guarantee you. And it's not a snobby way to say it. It's just the fact, it's just confidence. For me, I've done charity work in the past as well. I've worked at the Mornington Op Shop, to be honest, back in the day. And I remember, and that was charity work. I didn't do it. I did it because I wanted to do it. I didn't do it because it was something to do. It's just, it was the right
Not,
thing to do, and I just got didn't get a satisfaction out of it.
The right thing to do. You didn't think that by thinking it's the right thing to do
No.
doesn't give you satisfaction.
No.
Okay.
I just did it because it just was the flow, and and then I happened to be on the cash register and then talking to a lot of people, and it was just the environment.
I think you're right. I think there's people like you who do it with the flow, etc., etc.
But then people are just like, it's like politicians.
I do think
it's like actresses and all that. They're like, if I do this, this, and this, I'm getting good points. Or like mass murderers, for example, the really good ones that do so much charity work and then no one suspects a thing, and then you're like, oh my goodness, there's dead bodies all over behind the, like, you get a house, the foundations. You just, But I think
it's half, like, you can't put everyone in the box.
But on top of that is like the universe, if you're doing things out of having a bad expectation or anything of the sort for show, it comes back to you. It's like a mirror image, like eventually it's kind of like comes back to you and you're just like, oh, or someone will just put you in your place and be like, you're just a snob. And then if you know what you're doing is pure in your heart and you're being honest with yourself.
But what if Hitler thought he was being pure in his heart?
Probably was. He did. He said that in his diary, I'm pretty sure. But then it's each person's interpretation. But I'm not the person sending people to, the gas chambers.
But it was pure in his heart.
Yeah. It's very true. I'm going to cleanse. I'm going to cleanse
this country. These people. I'm going to make it better.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm just kind of just like, both ways can go bad.
Yeah. You just have to be...
You can think that you're doing the right thing for everyone. You can think you're being a saint, but maybe you're actually keeping people in that position, because you're the one handing them those gift cards. You're the one handing them those, food vouchers, that they become dependent on you coming and giving.
I know what you're saying, but no, not for me. But I see other people. Remember this one chick at the op shop, actually? She was like that. She would bring really expensive things into the op shop in order to... And people were like, oh, she really wasn't a nice person. But then at the end of the day, she just didn't vibe with my vibe.
Yeah. And
it just was what it was. But yeah, it's just, you know what you're doing at the end of the day, is what I would say. 110% what you're doing. And if you want to manipulate other people, well...
Do you think that everyone has slight manipulation?
I think everyone does. Out of insecurity. If you had no insecurity, you'd just be a nutcase.
So, do you think that there's some people who are doing things for themselves that out of pure manipulation and just want to stand on
But
people?
And again...
And then there's other people doing it for the group.
But even if someone's trying to manipulate you, at the end of the day, the way that I see it is that I'm stationary. This is my intention I'm putting out there into the universe. I will get that back. And then, you have to be confident in yourself to be like, okay, I see what you're saying and I'm taking it on board. Well, I'll listen to everyone's opinions because everyone's entitled to an opinion, but at the end of the day, I will make a decision. And you find a lot of the time, those manipulative people, they get really ticked off and pissed off. They may not say it to your face. It may be to third parties around you, and then those third parties have a problem with you because they can't stand on their own 2 feet. I find that with a lot of people. And then years later, when they're not friends with other people, they're just like, oh, you're really cool. I'm like, yeah, but what was all of that before? So it's just being confident, but also not to be snobby. Just take it all on board, but make a decision. Don't sit on the fence.
Don't you think it kind of comes down to the fact that people... I guess, kind of drift back to the group in order to feel secure sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's this constant battle between the group, the individual, the group, the individual. Like in a boy band.
Yeah, literally.
So you've got your individual
But you have to be clear about your intentions though. If you keep repeating the same errors over and over and over again, you're bound to keep blowing up.
Yeah, you're bound to keep going in a vicious cycle.
But then you have to have that honest conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
What do you think, though?
I think it's like with everything, I think it's about a balance. I think that you got to pursue your own individual needs. You need to make sure that you're getting nourishment in what you're doing. It's just like if you're not looking after you, how the hell can you look after anyone else?
Yeah, it's like a mother that gives everything to her children, which she should. She's brought them into the world and do this and that, but at the same time, you have to, that wears out after a while. It's a lot of work, and that goes with
Well, it's a
everything.
lot of energy, and I think sometimes that you can overwater things. You
Yeah.
can over nurture things.
That's why a lot of people, when the kids grow, they can't handle it when they're alone in the house. And because they didn't go through the process for themselves, they gave it to other people, which you need to do. It's like a good balance, right? You need to be there for your children and do whatever you can, but put you first as well. Like, you're just as important as your children, I would say.
I think it's about like also organic power versus inorganic power. And organic power is when you're able to do things not expecting anything in return and understand that your influence and your power is within you.
Yeah, you've always had the answer.
Yeah, and anything that you say or do to anyone
has repercussions.
Like, you're basically
a lot of people that actually do bad, you notice, like, they kind of just like, oh, that was ages ago. What are you talking about?
Brush it off.
Yeah, just come on. That was like a month ago. What, you're worried about that now? You should live in the moment. Be like, yeah, but what you did was stuffed. I used to have a lot of, let's say, ex-friends like that, where I would point things out in the moment. They'd get upset, and then I'd point them out. Like, then they somehow come back into my life, and I'd point that out, that I don't like the way that this is, and you may not like, what I'm doing, but this is my problem. And they're like, oh, it was ages ago.
Yeah, it was ages ago, so get over it.
Yeah, it's like, but then it's kind of like a lot of people with mental abuse as well. That deal with mental abuse, they just have that cycle of not being able to snap out of it. But then that's the manipulation.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to all of those types of people out there.
Yeah. Do you think we're a stronger society together or separate?
Definitely together. They say no man's an island, yeah? But then at the same time, like, it's just taking everyone's opinions on board, and again, making your decision for you as well. There's a lot of ways you can cut, you can look at one, it's like looking at a case, yeah? You can look at it, this, and this. You can have all the proof, and obviously this is the answer. Then you have your gut instinct. And that gut instinct may go completely against all the evidence.
Yeah.
So it's just taking on everything on board, but make sure you don't sit on the fence and not make a decision and be scared that you will stuff up. If you stuff up, okay. You can say to yourself, at least I thought about it well. I've made a mistake. Okay, I won't do that again. I will try my best not to do that again.
What about the times when you don't think about it? The times when you're just in the moment and you act impulsive from an emotional state, not a logical.
You have to calm down there in the moment. And if people are getting at you, those are not the types of people you should have. It's bad energy.
Yeah.
Because if they're trying to get your attention, and if you can't for a second, because your core, this is how I see it. When people are attacking me, I have a core, and it's strong. And it's I think Maya Angelou said this. She was she's the one that kind of inspired Oprah in many ways. She said that there has to be a core within you that's strong, that is untarnished, and then that will guide you. You have to take your gut instinct into mind and the situation and make a decision. If you make a mistake, it's okay. But if people are hammering at you to do this and do that, and you're feeling that it's not the right vibe, those are not the people. And you should be aware and cut it. Or at least have a talk and be like, I don't like what you're doing. This is why. If they have an attitude, okay. But if they're able to talk about it, all right, we can move forward with this, because but then that's maturity.
Yeah, totally. So how long have we been?
20 minutes, James.
Oh, 20. It's gone fast.
I know. Such a good talk. So you have to have a solid foundation, but you have to also, if
Do
you're
you
seeing
think
someone that's getting abused or something, don't just be like, oh, it's just me and my life, blah, 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 blah. You have to help one another because that one kind gesture might actually save someone's life.
but don't you think that we have this tendency to group people together?
But then that's, again, insecurity, yeah?
Yeah.
It's if you're able to be like me and you are drifters. I've always been a drifter. Um, I've got people coming in and out of my life, people coming back. You know, it's great. Um, but at the same time, people group. It's interesting with groups though. When you always get the alpha, you get the alpha and you get the little pups, and they never. They know bloody well the alpha's doing wrong, but out of or if I don't do what the alpha, I'm out, and that's no protection for me. It's kind of like Mean Girls, yeah? That's no protection for me. So I'm not going to let that. I'm not going to put my life on the line. I'm going to watch you get abused, sort of a thing. And then years later, oh,
So
hi,
accurate.
hi. Yeah.
Very accurate.
But then again, it's a choice that people make. Like,
Why do you think that me and you are drifters? Do you think it's because we are individuals and we're okay to shift into the group when we need to shift into the group
but
and
then
shift out?
I would say yes, but then I can see how people would interpret that as being selfish, that we need certain people for a certain need and then we bugger off. I wouldn't say that, period. I would say that we're just comfortable with ourselves. Like I can go and sit on the grass by myself and I don't have to worry if my hair's not straightened or, you know what I mean? And then you can do what you want as well. It's having that confidence. Like me, I can go sit in a restaurant by myself.
Yeah, same. I can go to the movies by
By
myself.
myself. And people are like, oh, you don't want to go with some. That's not the point. I would love to. But at the same time, I need to be for me as well. Like, and I'd like to maintain that.
I think sometimes the dynamics of the group, like you said, listening to people say yes, 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 yes to someone, and
Whenever you speak up as well, they don't like it. You notice the personalities coming up, and you're just like, oh wow,
it's because you're upsetting the apple car.
you're rocking the boat.
Yeah. And it's not that you're, it's more that you're just trying to make them aware of the dynamic that's going on right now.
Yeah,
And the fact that I can see that you're not happy in this dynamic. And
it
you're
never is like about the dynamic. It's about some childhood problem. Yeah, it's never like I've noticed. Like it's always
something
by
else.
the way,
Yeah.
they're just using that as an excuse.
Do you think that sometimes people hold on to people because they've got a shared trauma?
Probably.
And
I
you
wouldn't be
think,
surprised. But then you think that you have that connection because of that trauma, but then your interpretation of that trauma is different to mine. Just aspects of it are the same.
and do you think that sometimes that can hold you both back?
Yeah, it's kind of like being in a rut. But then if you're able to have that conversation as well, like the deep conversation of, okay, we share this, but also I'm going to now, okay, I'm going to go and stay in Canada. And if you're going to have a fuss about it, there's something that means you're kind of using one another in order to feel comfortable. Where I'd be like, okay, you can go, like it's all right. But we have this connection because of this and this. It's just, possessiveness. But then at the end of the day,
Do you think do you think that that is just a I think that like even possessiveness is a trait that people have, and I think it's a trait people have who aren't able to accept that someone can be better off
or like even the smart ones, people can't admit someone's
without you.
better. Yeah. But then that's the whole trick of the game, yeah? It's can you actually stay on your own? Can
Yeah.
you be without a relationship? Can you be on your own doing this, this, and this? Like, how many people now? I'm single, I'll just put it out there.
Me too.
And it's just the fact that I wouldn't mind a relationship, but I'm not
How
going
about-
to just die just.
You know the one thing that annoys me is why are you single? Why are you
That used
single?
to annoy me. Yeah, because the fact of the matter is, then you're looking at them going, what have you settled for?
That's what I think.
And I'm just like, interesting perspective, isn't it? Where they think, oh, you can't be by yourself. You have to be at this age doing this and that.
It's just like, what have you settled for? And also, why are you as another single person, thinking less of yourself.
Yeah,
for
but at the
being
same
single.
time, being in a
And
relationship's completely fine. Just putting it out there as well. It's just the flow. Like, if I happen to meet someone where the flow is good, yeah, sure, I'll get married and do this and that. I'm not dying for it. A lot of people die for it, and then you end up in a worse position than what you started off with.
but do you think that it's more so about, those people who enter relationships with someone else and it's a loving relationship? Do you think that sometimes it's more about the fact that they together are fighting a struggle between the individual and
But both people know, yeah.
the relationship?
It's kind of like, I was watching The Crown, how Princess Margaret and I've forgotten her ex-husband, how they both had ulterior motives, and still because it was kind of like that trauma thing that was happening with both of them,
That
and
was
they got a
interesting.
divorce eventually. But then that was the whole thing that made that agreement, where it wasn't like love at first sight. It was just okay. They knew that they were using one another. No one wanted to accept it, but then they still did it. But then that's the agreement that those two people made.
Yeah.
So can you really complain after? And then you get people that naturally things happen, and then naturally it breaks up, and then that's okay as well. Just there's no need to be petty.
Yeah.
Number one, period. There's no need for pettiness. Like if I have kids and we get a divorce or whatever like that, there's no need for me to, unless you're abusive. If I would never do that to my child, because honestly, like the court says, it's in the child's best interest. It totally is. And if you're going to be petty and this and that, what's the point? It's like a waste of time. You're wasting your time, and it's bad karma for yourself.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just, you have an obligation to help others, but also help yourself. I think it's a bit of both worlds, to be honest. You rise by lifting others, but you can't also operate in an empty. What's that saying? You can't operate on an empty cup.
I think it's about like realizing that what are you striving for in this life, and what is someone else striving for in this life, and also how everyone is striving for something and how we can lift each other up. And there's plenty of space for you to do what you need to do and for me to do what I need to do. I think we live in a very lack kind of thing. It's just like, if I enter this, if I do this, I'm going to miss out on this. But you could get this.
Yeah, but then a lot of people that accuse you of that know that already. It's kind of like a bully. They know how you are. They just don't want you to figure it out.
Yeah.
They have already figured you out because they're cunning and manipulative, and they have that thing where they just understand people, and you can either do that for good or bad.
Do you think that there is groups out there that lift each other up and they're successful, and there's the other groups that tear each other down, and it's just that dynamic?
You can always see that through time, yeah? It can look like gold, and then all of a sudden you hear, oh yeah, it's because that happened or this, and then you realize this stability wasn't there to begin with.
Yeah.
But
There was all these cracks.
And sometimes you need to do that by just stepping back and just having a look instead of joining the crowd, and just be confident. Be confident, but not cocky. Fine line. A lot of people...
The balance.
Yeah, it's the balance.
Yeah.
Were beautiful.
The pizzas were beautiful. Just want to put it out there.
The pizzas were really nice tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell. That's great.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
Pizza.
No. Good talk. I would say it's a bloody good talk.
Yeah.
Good conversation. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Comment on our page, James and Jess's Half Hour. Follow us on Instagram. This has also been filmed and will be on our YouTube channel. So James and Jess's Half Hour again, if you haven't caught on.
James and Jess's Half Hour.
Yeah, it's a good talk.
Yeah.
Good work,
Okay.
James.
Sweet.
Bye.
Bye.
We should call that the presidential debate.
Presidential debate. Yeah.
Just shut up.
Shut up. Shut up right now. I'm